Hello everyone, and welcome to round number 12 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship here live on Racesport TV Friday primetime on the iRacing Esports Network. It's me, Connery Maddock here. Joining me will be Ryan Walker in just a couple of moments' time. But this championship heads to America once again as we get ourselves around Laguna, Seca in just around about 5 minutes' time. Qualifying is currently underway. The track conditions are up on screen for you now. And an interesting thing, usually this will be on a normal iRacing season, the last round of the championship of week number 12, but well, they've extended it one more for this particular season. So this is the penultimate round of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship, the official league here on iRacing. But relatively cool conditions out there, just under 20 degrees Celsius, but still with clear skies. But we got about 4.5 minutes left here in qualifying. But before we get to that, we can show our lovely faces up on screen for you now. I'm Connery Maddock, that's Ryan Walker. And make sure I point in the right direction. There we go, that way around. Ryan, it's Laguna Seca. It's the Indy Pros. It goes together like a horse and carriage.
Oh, it does, absolutely. It's another one of my favourite tracks in the iRacing service, and the Indy Pro 2000 car is my favourite car this season when it comes to open wheel racing. I think tonight with this combination, I think we should be in for a fantastic race. And with it coming to the end of the season as well, the championship battle seems to be spicing up as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes tonight with the championship protagonists like Ross Woodford, Greg Seats, and also not far away in the championship, Suelio Armida.
Yeah, of course, Almeida has been the driver to beat whenever he's turned up to these races on a Friday. He has been by far and away the best driver on the grid. But I think you'll have some challenges this time around. Of course, since it is a free track on the iRacing service, you get a lot more participation in these weeks where it goes to free tracks. So we've had quite a handful of sign-ups here into this one. Suelio Almeida, of course, is the number one car coming into this as the highest I-rated driver, but we do have Paul Ilbrink there. We have Ocean Walsh as well. And Pinsker, Phil Reed as well, which are drivers that do have a bit of pace behind them. So Almeida, it's not a guarantee for him in this one, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely not. I think, like I say, you've got Greg Seats, you've got also you've got the likes of Phil Reed, Paul Ilbrink, James Pinsker, and another face as well. You've got Oisin Walsh as well. So yeah, quite a few challengers that will give Suelio a run for his money this evening.
Yeah, the track is looking pretty clear out there. Martin Arnoldus is out there on a lap at the moment. He heads his way across the line. He's currently P11 here in qualifying and doesn't look to have improved on that previous time, but he'll still continue to work his way around. Why not? Let's pull up the current lap time for him there. 18 seconds as he heads his way through the back end of sector number 1 here. Just take us through the lap here, Ryan, as he heads his way towards one of the big opportunities in this race, that very wide left-hander, turn 4-5.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's coming up to the kink now, which leads on to Ray Hall Straight. And Ray Hall Straight leads up to one of the most famous corners around this track, which is the corkscrew. This is one of those corners that you can't really see until the very last second. So it's a bit hard to spot your braking point as Martin brakes and he takes a towards curve and guaranteed to get a slowdown, and that'll invalidate his lap.
Yep, there he is, stopped out there on circuit, so he will get no more laps in the book. So that P11 will have to be where he starts for this one. We've got about 1:20 just to try and sum things up here, because there are no cars out there on circuit at the moment. So we get a little bit of time to go over the results. Of course, Suelio Almeida, pole position to be expected, but only by just over 0.2 of a second in this instance. And sometimes in previous races, we've seen him out-qualify the rest of the field by 0.4 of a second or more. So it is looking a little bit closer.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a lot closer tonight. And Suelio, as quick as he is in this car, he's got another quick driver in this car, Oisin Walsh, behind him. And Oisin, they took the win last time out at last week at the Gateway, taking the win, and pretty much took it in dominant fashion. So he'll be one to keep an eye on tonight.
Yeah, he definitely will. And you can see there's a little bit of clustering in and amongst the mid-pack. I'm talking around about where Paul Ulbrink is, Ottorola, Ian Mitchell Green is in there, James Pinsker, all within a handful of tenths of a second. So battle for positions just inside the top 5 are going to be particularly hot as well.
Yeah, in the mid pack, this season has been really close to watch as well. But you've got great battles up at the front, but the mid pack has provided just as much exciting racing. And I think this evening it should be no exception with Laguna Seca. It always seems to be one of those tracks that provides really close racing, especially in the mid pack. And you've got the likes of Fabio Berstold, Evan Emre, and Martin Arnoldas as well, and Miedema as well, and a few other drivers as well. So yeah, I'll be keeping my eye on that with interest.
So with that, enough little mentions of qualifying. Let's get our full qualifying grid here today then for the Indy Pro 2000 Championship, round number 12 at Laguna Seca. It looks a little bit like this. Suelia Almeida on pole position with Ocean Walsh in P2. Greg Seitz and Phil Reed will make up row number 2, P3 and 4 on the starting grid. Christian Ottorola in P5. Paul Ulbrink will start in 6th place. Mitchell Green in 7th. James Pinsker will line up in P8. Alexei Nesov will go over the 1 second bracket there. It starts in P9. And Miedema in P10. Martin Arnoldas starts P11 with Evan Imre in P12. Berchtold in P13. Ziga will line up 14th here today. Jean-Michel Noyon in P17. We got Otto Repskaya there in P18 and Frank Nguyen in P number 19. So there is your 19-car grid. We didn't really have to go that quick through it because we do have a full pace lap here at Laguna Seca, so it's going to be a little bit more time before we get green flag racing here for round number 12. But overall, what are your expectations here in the first couple of laps, Ryan? Because they could be pretty hairy, especially coming down into the first turn for the first time.
I think these drivers are going to have to be careful into turn 1 and just be aware of turn 1 around the Laguna Seca. It can cause a bit of a bottleneck effect, and if the pack's too close to each other, it means incidents can happen, just silly incidents. So these drivers have to be wary of that, and also be wary of the cold tyres as well in the first couple of laps, just because these cars are on the latest tyre model, and yeah, starting on cold tyres with this car is a bit of a scary proposition.
So they're off and away then, behind the iRacing 911 Cup safety car. So you get to do a full tour of the lap here at Laguna Seca. Ample opportunity to try and get some heat into those tyres as well. Like you said, these cars are on the new tyre model, so it's going to be stone cold tyres at the start of the race unless they're able to get a little bit of heat in. I'm seeing no one weave too much though, saying I'm seeing a little bit of tyre warming going on for the back couple of rows, but these front rows are not concerned about that for the moment as they head out of the first sector and coming towards where you start to really feel the elevation change, climb the hill out of this turn just before the kink. You start to climb that hill all the way up to one of the trickiest corners in motorsports, the corkscrew. And I said turn 1's going to be sketchy on the first lap. I think the corkscrew is also going to be a very big point of contention here today.
It is, and also with these cars as well, with the cars being relatively low to the ground rather, it means through the corkscrew, if you take the exit ever so wrong and the car hits the ground, it can spin you around and even loop you into the wall. So these drivers will have to be careful as well as they'll start to bunch up now, and very soon we'll be underway. But I think it's going to be interesting in the first 2 or 3 laps, looking to see if everyone settles down or if everyone will try and go for it straight away and try and make moves.
So there we go, heading into the final couple of corners. Now you start to see the tyre weaving going on at the very front of the field, just to get those last couple of degrees into the tires before we go racing for round number 12. Pace car dives down to the safety of pit lane. Field is now under the control of the number 1 car. Suelio Almeida rounds the final corner, hits the throttle with green flag racing at Laguna Seca as they go across the line. Seats caught napping though from row number 2. He comes under attack from Phil Reed coming down into turn number 1, but he's been able to get himself single file ahead of his competitor. More importantly, a side-by-side though further behind. Ilbrink's involved in this one. Mitchell Green trapped on the outside for these right-handers here. Big amount of oversteer. That is where, you know, cold tires coming into effect there for Green, and he loses the position to Nesov.
Yeah, that was just like you say, just the effect of cold tyres. As some of the just behind Paul Ulbrink as well, there was a couple of cars going side by side, and Paul Ulbrink gets a run on Christian or Otorola. Ooh! Side
by side through the kink. That was Nesov that went off there, and he's lost it as he tried to come back on circuit. In the gravel, in the dirt, on the outside, cycled all the way to the back of the field. And that is why, Ryan, you don't go too wide into the kink, because that one car has no place to go. Cornu has also had an incident at the corkscrew as well.
Yeah, the kink is not really a corner that you want to go too wide, or you can't go too wide, because otherwise, as we just saw, Nesov basically had issues, and if you try and go too wide through the kink, it just ends up in disaster.
See, there's only so much room you can give there. It's such a tight portion of the corner, and as he tried to rejoin the racetrack, completely lost control of that car. I know Cornu also had a problem into the corkscrew, so let's have a look at what happened to him in the same replay. Ooh, was a contact behind. Didn't quite catch the car number on that one, but that one definitely wasn't Cornu's fault as he got run over from behind.
And that was the bottleneck effect I was talking about. Everyone just bunching up, and the Cornu just unfortunately got tagged from behind, and Paul Ulbrink is still battling away behind Christian Otorola as well, and trying to. Oh, it's Mitchell Green. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, I think he lost the position just a couple of moments ago to Otorola, and that is actually quite a big chunk of time to lose for Paul Ulbrink. I wonder what exactly happened there. We'll risk a replay because I think it was a little bit of a moment here for Ulbrink, because you can see he's ahead of Mitchell Green there on those pictures. Oh, he goes very, very wide coming out the first sector, and that just gave the run to Green, who's able to nip his way down the inside easy pass.
Yeah, Green went up the inside, and Paul Ulbrink just caught a little bit of the gravel on the exit, and it might have just unsettled him a little bit, and Green managed to pounce on him and pick up the position.
Yep, and Mitchell Green does maintain the position. There he is, car number 15 versus car number 2. Ulbrink hasn't had the most ideal of starts here, but there's still plenty of time left in this race to try and recover that one, so it's not going to be a huge panic for him just yet. Still time for him to claw his way through the field. Just to give you a little bit of an update at the very front, though. There's the man in the lead, Suelio Almeida. The gap back to Walsh stands at 1.3 seconds. So you know all that thing I was saying about at the start of the race where Almeida might have some challenges at this race? Yeah, he's proving me wrong at the moment.
Yeah, he's just pulling away from Walsh at the moment, and Oyson Walsh is no slouch. He's really quick in this car, but when it comes to form, Almeida has just been pretty much the man to catch and pretty much the form man, and I think at the moment he's just pulling away, dominating, and showing why he's so quick in this car.
Yep, gap will be up to half a second by the time they cross the line there. So Almeida continuing to stretch out this gap, and this is what he's been doing race after race after race here on Racebot Primetime. He's been absolutely exemplary at the very front of the field, and leaving the rest of the grid in his dust. But back to Paul Ulbrink, though, because this is the closest significant battle, this one for P7 at the moment, as Pinsker is now closing in on that Radicals Online car. So Ulbrink not quite able to keep up with Green ahead of him.
We know that Paul Ulbrink said earlier in the season that he was not happy, or he was slightly frustrated not to be closer to the front, because he Yeah, it just seems to be shown again that he seems to be struggling for pace in the early stage of the race at the moment, and Pinsker's putting him under huge pressure. But Paul Olbrink, we know how quick he can be from watching him in the World Championship Series ages ago. So he's not a slouch, but maybe just not comfortable with his car, and maybe just still getting his head around it.
Yeah, that sometimes is a little bit of a struggle. And James Pinsker is closing. Oh, Elbrink, it just seems like, again, like you said, he's not comfortable. That's the second off that we've seen, at least on the live pictures, that Elbrink has had. One that was coming through the exit of the first sector just a couple of laps ago, and the one just then through the penultimate corner. So he's having trouble keeping a hold of his car at the moment, which is which is not in his character, shall we say. He usually has a good grip on things, but maybe not today.
Yeah, and I was just watching him into turn one as well. He took a really tight line into the Andretti hairpin, and it was a bit unusual. So maybe they're struggling with a bit of understeer and maybe having to do stuff like trail brake much more than usual, or maybe it's just something to do with the setup. Maybe he's struggling with that, but it's a bit unusual to see Paul struggling for pace a little bit.
Riding on board with Pinsker as he tries to hunt down Paul Olbrink. Gap is back up to 2/3 of a second, so Olbrink has been able to pull things back, at least in the first half of this lap. Keeps Pinsker at bay for now, but I have to wonder how long he'll be able to do that. Pinsker very, very quick, especially in the back end of races, I found. But having a look a bit further back, though, because there are closer battles, at least a little bit less significant ones, but it's Ziga right on the back of Imre coming into the final corner. And, well, despite how tight the final corner is, you do still have to be very brave to go down the inside there, and Imre has just let Ziga go there.
Yeah, I think Evan realised that Thomas is probably the quicker driver at the moment, and I thought Evan was going to try and take a sneaky look up the inside, but maybe it's the line he takes into turn one. But he's just let Ziegler go, and I think it's just a matter of time before Ziegler pulls away and builds up a bit of a gap, or maybe Emre's be using that slipstream to catch up to the cars in front.
Yeah, because you can see, there's a definite lift out there just to let Ziegler go. So easiest pass of Thomas's life, shall we say. But he'll try to continue on. He's 1.5 seconds behind the next driver down the road. That is Ann Medema. So a little bit of time before he gets some more action here. Speaking of action, Noyon and Nesov further back. And Nesov is on his recovery drive, remember, because he had a bit of an off on lap number one, trying to go side-by-side through the kink with Paul Olbrink. He got onto the grass and the gravel, it's dirt and gravel at this racetrack, isn't it? Not much grass to speak of. But rejoining the track was the problem for Nesov as he spun the car and got cycled all the way back to 19th. But he has recovered down. Ooh, there we go. Big dive down the inside of the final corner. Nesov has been able to gain the position, but there's two cars right on his tail coming into turn number one. And Noyon, you got Otretskova as well there. But none of them going to go for dives. Noyon goes deep on the brakes, but he's not able to do anything with it. But that was a big ballsy move there for Nesov. I was describing just a couple of minutes ago about how brave you have to be into there, and Nesov just showing that he has the bravery required.
Yeah, that was a bit of a brave move, but as Nesov touched the grass and just about he loses the car but manages to hold it. So you can see at the moment Nesov is absolutely pushing it to try and get as many positions back as possible.
Yeah, so recovery drive is looking very good so far for Nesov. The next driver down the road for him, you'll see him pop up. That is James Newing from Club UK and Ireland, is the next on his targets, on his to-do list, shall we say. And 1.3 seconds. Well, he lost a little bit of time there through the middle sector, but I think he'll be able to recover things back somewhat. And that car is still not looking settled, and it's the exact same thing with Paul Olbrink. That the car just the tail seems to be happy, and through the exit of some of these corners, he has no choice but to push a little wide.
Yeah, and it looks like Nesov might be using lower downforce possibly to try and help on the straight, but it wouldn't make sense around the Laguna Seca, since most of the corners are relatively high speed, but you've got some slow speed corners, so maybe he's on a medium downforce setting.
Yeah, you can see a battle further ahead, though, because we were concerned about Nesov catching Newing, but Newing has other problems right now, and that's trying to get past Fabio Berchtold. So positions still outside the top 10, but they are close ones, so we'll keep an eye on them for now as they head their way through the clink and start that big old climb up the hill towards that treacherous braking zone of the corkscrew. You can see that Berchtold actually went much shallower on the entry to the corner than Newing did. Newing getting the better run through the corner as a result, and Berchtold is getting a lot of pressure applied to his rear wing at the moment. And you can see again a very shallow line through the penultimate corner, so he's playing this one very, very defensive, and Nesov is closing like a rear knot.
Yeah, and I'm just watching Nesov as well. He's closing these two guys like really quickly. He's not wasting any time catching up to them, and I think it's just a matter of time before he gets by both of them. Maybe not in one move, but he'll definitely get by them at some point as he tries to make a move up the side.
That's from quite far back, and well, Newing, I think, kind of knew when he was beat there and just let Nesov go, as I would probably do the same as well if I was closed in on at that rate and the car wants to go for a dive down the inside at turn number 1. We'll get another look at it though, but it's going to be a textbook move for Nesov. You can see it's quite far back, but then again, Newing kind of outbroke himself into turn 1.
Yeah, I think Newing was just too busy watching his mirrors, looking to see what Nesov was going to do. But I think I think Newing might have took a big intake of breath, because I thought Nesov was going to have contact with him at one point.
Meanwhile, back up inside the top 10, Ilbrink and Pinsker, their battle has suddenly become just that little bit closer. I was seeing the gap hovering around about 0.8 of a second just a couple of laps ago. Now that has been halved exactly on the brakes into turn 1. So Ilbrink is going to have yet more company in this one. So it's been a pretty active race for Ilbrink. He's having to look ahead of him, look behind him, look everywhere. And I guess that's a lot better than a boring race for a driver, I suppose, even though it's more stressful.
Yeah, I'm one of those drivers. I don't mind if I'm in a battle with someone or by myself, but I find being in a battle helps keep me focused a little bit. So I think it's definitely helping Paul in a way, just keeping his mind focused. But Pinsker just seems to be the slightly quicker driver, and he's got a run in him possibly as he head up to the corkscrew, but I don't think he'll do anything silly. As he closes right up under the brakes.
Yeah, we're running on board with Pinsker as this battle just gets tighter and tighter, but there's been no opportunities just yet here for Pinsker, so he'll just have to wait for the time being, and he has plenty of time to wait as well. We've only just got on to lap number 11 of 25 here today, so still more than half the race to go in this one. So Pinsker can bide his time. I'm just having a look at his lap times. He's not running any quicker than Green or Reed or anyone else in front at the moment. So it's not going to be a huge loss if he gets stuck behind Ilbrink here. But again, Ilbrink very wide out of the Mario Andretti hairpin. So it's seemingly like the handling problems of that Radicals Online car have not gone away.
Yeah, it just seems to be, Ilbrink seems to be, Ilbrink runs wide onto the gravel again.
Yeah, something's not quite right. I don't think Ilbrink is too happy. I don't think that is his actual line that he takes to the corners. It seems very risky if so. But it seems like it's struggling. We do have quite cool conditions, especially considering the lack of cloud cover, so that may be putting him off a little bit here, and it's something that can influence things. Pinsker, a little bit of a slide through the corkscrew there, but nowhere near as all over the place as Ilbrink is.
Yeah, it could be possibly Paul's just he might have set his tyre presses up for a colder track, and maybe these the warmer track here, basically the track conditions at the moment, maybe not suiting his tyre presses or camber settings at the moment.
Yeah, so that gap though is now extended up to a second, so Ilbrink's done a good job on these last couple of laps to be able to extend the gap, but I think it's less Ilbrink going faster, but more Pinsker having a problematic lap there. It was a 15.7 for Pinsker last time around, whereas it was a 15.5 for Ilbrink, which is very much on the pace compared to the cars ahead of him. So Pinsker just had a bit of a mare of a lap there, but, you know, it's one of those things that you can recover from. Like I said, he has plenty of time left in this race to try and make this pass, so he doesn't need to rush himself, and he's already gained, though saying that, he's already gained about 0.4 of a second on this lap already, so what do I know?
And again, he closes right up under braking on Elbrink, so it looks like Paul might be struggling under braking as well, but Pinsker at the moment is absolutely just, every time he closes up to the Elbrink, he seems to just throw it away a little bit. But he has to come up to the final corner, and the Elbrink again just pulls out that slight bit of a gap.
Ooh, Phil Reed under pressure from green. That was a bit of a sketchy acceleration zone out the final corner for Reed, as he seems to perhaps be having problems of a technical nature there. And in fact, he's having so bad of a problem that he pulls out and lets Mitchell Green through. And you can see right behind this, there's the battle for P6 between Elbrink and Pinsker. So this is all closed up here for P4, 5, 6, and 7.
Absolutely. Oh, is it Elbrink runs right to the gravel and he just about loses it? Whoa.
Again pushes wide, and this time it's much more tragic because Pinsker has been able to make his way through. It seems like that turn at the end of the first sector is Elbrink's Achilles heel, and this time he's been punished for it. Let's see if he's able to do anything up into the corkscrew, but I don't think he is, as that will maintain the status quo into there. But let's just have another look at this, because in fact we'll just go on board with Elbrink. In fact, we're not. We're just going to go on his gearbox, and there we go. It's just that little bit wide, and it just upset the car just a little bit too much. We'll get to see it again. Just out there, he's been doing that almost every single lap, and this time he slows down enough that Pinsker's able to capitalize.
Yeah, and it could be as well. Paul might be struggling with a little bit of a understeer or corner exit understeer, getting on the power, and when he gets on the power, the front end just basically doesn't grip up on the exit, and he's struggling with that a little bit. As I'm just watching him again just to see if he has the same issue, and he doesn't have it this time.
Yeah, Evan Imre had an issue into turn 1 there. Just lets Nesov go, so Nesov's recovery drive continues on. Well, go on.
Sorry to interrupt, Conrad. I just watched Paul Elbrink get sideways again as he clipped the gravel, and that was so close to spinning it round.
Yeah, let's have a little bit of a look at that then, because it seems like the handling problems just get worse for that Radicals Online car. Let's have a look. Coming into the braking zone for the left-hander. Into there. And whoa! That is a big moment. That is a big moment there for Elbrink. Car not very happy at all, and I think it's good. It's going to be a situation where Elbrink has done well to even get that car back to the checkered flag.
And I'm just watching behind Elbrink as well, and look who's closed up behind him. Elbrink as well is Martin Arnoldus as well. So Elbrink is just having so many issues that it's allowed him to catch up as well.
Yeah, Arnoldus is on the hunt now, as both drivers from the Benelux club, both from the same part of the world, as Arnoldus in that number 11. And going along well at the moment. Solidly inside the top 10. Healthy amount of points, healthy amount of I rating, which is perhaps the more important thing for these drivers. Not a lot of people keep track of the individual season championships unless you really just want to have that certificate, I suppose. There's Ziga out there continuing to log laps. He's solidly inside the top 10 as well. If we look outside the top 10, then we'll start to see things a little bit closer. There's Medima and Imre. About 7.5 of a second between them there, but Imre, of course, given up that position again. I think Imre, he's been having major problems here in this, because you can see he's dropped off a couple of tenths of a second just as we're talking about him. So he had that moment where he pushed wide through turn 1 and allowed Nesov go, and it looks like Medima has been able to get through rather quickly as well.
Yep, Medima having a decent run as well, but it just seems to be some of these drivers, maybe their driving style is not suiting Laguna Seca as well, and maybe they struggling with getting the car tuned up to how they would like it. Like we're seeing with Paul Albrink, he's having loads of issues, and Imre as well just doesn't seem to be able to keep it consistent.
Yeah, that's the problem. Consistency is key in these sorts of races. So you see them work their way around. The gap's starting to extend a little bit now at this stage in the race. 16 laps, well, looking to be logged at the end of this one of 25. So past the halfway point now. I'm having a little bit of a look further down the field. There's Berchtold in the number 10. He's within half a second of James Newing in that rather pink and white number 17 car. And that gap now extending as Newings gets a good run through the kink on the way up into the corkscrew. So Berchtold's not going to be able to do all that much about this. I'm seeing Ziga on the pit lane, and that looks like... Well, tell me what's wrong with this image, Ryan.
He's missing the left front wheel.
Yeah, it's usually you'd require 4 wheels on your wagon. I'm not sure where Ziga has lost his fourth. So we'll get to see it on the replay. On the way up into the corkscrew, is it an error into here? Not into it, but out of it. Second apex and noses it into the barriers there. So the corkscrew has caught one more out, I suppose. We haven't seen many problems into here except on lap 1 where Cornu got run over. But Ziga having problems all on his own, and yeah, the car just broke away from him, didn't want to grip up to take the right and just sent him straight into the barrier.
Yeah, just the corkscrew proving once again why it's one of those corners. If you get it wrong, especially in the exit, it'll bite you. And unfortunately, Thomas found that out. And it's such a tricky exit as well because getting the line right in the exit is so critical. And it looks like Thomas just ran that little bit wide over the bump, and it just unsettled the car. Yeah,
because there's a big elevation change coming up towards that second apex, where if you just catch it at the wrong point, your car's super light and it's definitely not going to turn, at least in the direction that you want it to. So that's why he just continued going on left, even though he had the steering input all the way to the right. Car just did not want to grip up because gravity, I suppose, as physics. There we go. But lap number 18 of 25 continuing to head their way around. There's the gap to the race leads. There's the race leader himself, Suelio Almeida. Just over 4 seconds to Walsh now. So I think Suelio's just doing Suelio things. We've seen this a lot in this series, and he's just making it look uncompetitive, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Suelio just basically kind of proving why at the moment why he's a bit like the Ayrton Senna of the Indy Pro 2000, just basically putting in a stunning drive, and his form at the moment, like I said before, he's just proven why he's one of the quickest people in this series. And again, at the moment, just in commanding form, and they basically just keep maintaining that gap and maintaining the pace, and not doing anything too silly.
Yeah, it's been a stellar drive so far from that number 1 driver. Newing and Berchtold, that gap still relatively similar as to when we last saw it. So Berchtold still not able to close in here in this battle for P12. Unfortunate for him, he is starting to run out of laps, running out of time at the moment. If you can get a good run out of the final corner, you can use all that slipstream into turn 1. Of course, definitely not going to be close enough for a move, but it's just going to be able to pull him that little bit closer here in this one. But Newing has done a good job in terms of trying to manage the gap here in this one. So, that's just the situation. Sometimes you don't have to try and extend the gap over the drivers behind you all the time. Sometimes you can just take a more relaxed approach to it and just try to keep the gap the same as it is.
Yeah, and this car is one of those cars that it requires you to be so smooth, not to overdrive it, just be smooth. And if you can do that, you'll have a good race. And at the moment, Newing's having a pretty good race as well, just maintaining that gap to Berchtold. And he's not doing anything silly, just keeping it nice and smooth.
So with a good couple of laps to go, let's just go RaceSpot TV fan immersion on board with your race leader, Suelio Almeida. He's been leading since the very start of the race, dominant in qualifying as well. Let's take a lap on board with him. was a lap on board there with Suelio Almeida. Pitch perfect, I have to say, as he's now extended the gap back to his closest rival, Ocean Walsh, by about 4.5 seconds. I'm seeing Arnoldus on... Ooh! Yeah, that's not how it rolled off the factory floor. Arnoldus has had a big one here. Let's take a look. So here he is, making his way through. What has happened to the number 11 here? This is into the final corner. Whoa! Okay. Hardware failure?
I'm just reading the in-game chat now, and Martin Arnoldus apparently his force feedback stopped working and didn't work anymore for 10, or basically didn't work for 10 laps.
That's a big impact as well. Arnoldus, he's running pretty well as well. He's looking to get a good result out of this race, and now hardware failure. Lack of force feedback into the final turn, and that's enough to distract you, very much so, especially if you have a direct drive wheel where you're used to having those forces on you coming through the corners. Suddenly not having that, especially coming in on the entry to a corner, yeah, that's gonna cause something like that. But back to the live pictures then, because things always seem to be happening away from the pictures for some reason. Can't quite keep on top of things, yeah, but it does mean, yeah, Mitchell Green, P4, James Pinsker, P5. I'm just trying to see the lap gaps between these two, as fluctuating in and out by just under a 1/10 of a second a lap there. So Green not extending the gap, Pinsker not making in any less either.
Yeah, the gap's pretty much just staying as it is at the moment. And it all seems to have settled down now as we come into the closing stages of the race, and the battles as well seem to have died down a little bit. But the closest one at the moment seems to be between Green and Pinsker.
Yeah, that's the exact one that you see as Green hits the brakes into turn 1. It's been a bit of a relaxed race here, this one at Laguna Seca. We've had some pretty crazy races in the past, though, in this series, Ryan, and it's always given us an ample amount of excitement. But it seems like a bit of a Sunday drive here at Laguna Seca for all intents and purposes. We've seen a couple of problems from a couple of drivers. You saw Ziga go out, Arnoldus recently. Odretskaya is also now out of the race as well. So just 3 retirements, and we had Dennis Cornu have his problems in the corkscrew early on in the race, but apart from that, it's been drivers on recovery drivers making passes and not making it look, and the other drivers not making it look too hard for them.
Indeed, and like you say, we've had some incredible races this season so far, and or basically for most of the season. I think my favourite one, when it came to battles and good racing, I think it had to be the battle for the win at Spa on the last lap.
Oh yeah, that was absolutely incredible. I almost lost my voice at that one as well, so that that was pretty fun. But just 2 more laps to go of this one. This battle for P11 is starting to get a little bit closer. I'm not sure it quite has the spark to give us a bit of fun here at the end of the race, but if Birchall really turns up the heat, then it can potentially be on the cards here. Let me just say that, as Ottorola behind these guys, it isn't really closing in. So this is basically going to be the story of is Ottorola able to get 2 passes in 2 laps? Because look at how much he's catching every lap.
It's more than possible. I mean, Ottorola is basically just putting the hammer down, and look at the lap times there, and look at the time he's gained. He basically gained about probably 2 or 3 seconds by the looks of it. And it looks to be quicker than Bertzold and Nguyen, and I think it's just a matter of not a matter of if but when.
Yeah, certainly. As we just get the cue that Suelio Almeida, there he is, race leader, is on the start of the final lap then. 5.2 seconds ahead of Ocean Walsh. So that is an incredible performance for Almeida, and one that we've perhaps come to expect from him as he continues on here. But there's the drivers about 55 seconds behind your race leader, as there's a mistake from Birchtold through the corkscrew. Now Otterola is able to pick up one pass, but will he be able to pick up the other one on that last lap? Of course, these guys are on their second to last lap here, so they'll have to go around again, since the leader hasn't come by just yet. But Otterola getting one pass out of the way, and the other one, about 1.2 seconds down the road, is not outside the realms of possibility here. I'm seeing Mitchell Green and Pinsker start to head in once again, but I don't think that one's going to be a thing for the end of this race. But one thing I do know for certain, though, is that Suelio Almeida will come out of the final corner to take yet another race win here in the Indy Pro 2000 Championship on RaceSpot TV Friday primetime on the iRacing Esports Network. The Brazilian does it again. Class of the field does his celebratory slide into turn 1. Brilliant job there from Suelio. I kind of want to cycle things back just that little bit further to see where Otterola is, because he is really closing in now on Newing. Can he get the 2 passes in 2 laps required to finish in P11 here? That is the question. He gets a good run out the corkscrew. Is he able to make anything happen through the penultimate corner? It's not really an overtaking spot. He'll have to set himself up for the final corner. Good drive out of there. Angles to the outside. Has to do it the long way around here. There's Otterola. Big snap oversteer there from Newing coming out the corner. It's a drag race to the line, but a drag race that will be won by Otterola. He finishes P11 after getting those 2 passes in 2 laps at the very end there. The rest of the drivers starting to head their way across the line now. There's Jean-Michel Nouan, there's Dennis Cornu, so everyone has headed their way across the line to take the checkered flag. But there we go. We got a little bit of excitement there at the end of that race, Ryan.
Yeah, we did indeed. That was a great battle between Otterola and Nouan, and I think Nouan just got slowed up in the exit of the final corner slightly after clipping the inside anti-cut, and they gave Otterola a chance to get the momentum on the outside and pick up the place on the home straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be fooled, this is not a battle on screen. Everyone's headed their way through as Ilbrink and Pinsker, or Reed, I believe that was, having a little bit of a faux fight at the end of the race there. But with that, here are your official race results for round number 12 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship. They look a little bit like this. Suelio Almeida wins by 7.1 seconds. And like I said, it's something that we've come to expect from him. Ocean Walsh with in a bit of no man's land there in second place. And Greg Zeitz will be the final member of the podium. Mitchell Green in P4, James Pinsker P5. Ilbrink holds on to what was a very sketchy car throughout that race in P6. Phil Reed P7. Alexei Nesov, great recovery drive to finish in P8. And Medima in P9. Evan Imre will round out the top 10. And then your rear part of the field. Christian Otterola in P11, James Newing P12, Birchtold P13, Frank Noen in P14, Jean-Michel Nouan in P15, Dennis Cornu P16, Arnoldus finishes 17th place here today, Ziga with issues as well down in 18th, Obzretskaya in P number 19 as your 19th and final car. But with that, we'll just take a very, very short commercial break here on RaceSpot TV. But don't go away, because we'll be back for the Post Race Show in just a couple of moments' time. Hello everyone and welcome back to Racesport TV Friday Prime Time. Live on the Art Racing Esports Network, we've just seen round number 12 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship here. And it was a relatively intriguing race, shall we say. It's probably the best way that I could put it, as it's been a race, I should say, Ryan, without sounding a little bit too bored of it.
Yeah, it wasn't the most exciting, but on the other hand, it was we still got some good battles in the midfield. But up at the front, it was pretty much the form man continuing where he left on. Our media just keeping up his good run, taking the win in dominant fashion, and no one had an answer for him.
Of course, to sum up this race, exactly as you said it, Ryan, it's Suelio Almeida, class of the field. It's seeming like no one can touch him in this car. You know, even some of the especially quick drivers in open wheel racing. It's absolutely amazing to see. We do have a couple of interviews on the cards, though, as we do have Walsh and Reed ready for their interview. I'll drag Walsh in, and Ryan, you're standing by with the man that finished in second.
Yeah, Oisin Walsh finishing in second, and they was a bit no man's land for most of the race, and they never had an answer for the eventual winner, Suelio Almeida, and Oisin. You must be happy with second, but on the other hand, I guess you would have wanted to take the win, but you've got to say Suelio was just pretty much in dominant form today.
Yeah, I mean, he was just quicker. That's kind of it. I think if I could have been better the first couple laps, I had the speed to stick with him if I was in the draft, but I could not do it in the dirty air at the start. So I lost the draft, and then that was kind of it from there. And then I was kind of okay on pace. I was usually able to be 2/10 off if I got the lap right, if not a little better. But by the end, then like the last 5 laps, I'm going to blame setup. I'm going to hope it was the setup, but I just dropped off to like 4/10 off. And then ran out of fuel on the last lap, but that didn't cost me a spot, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, it was kind of just frustrating sitting behind him for the entire race and seeing him pull away very slowly.
I mean, what did you think of the car and track combination? Did you like it, and if so, would you like it to come back next season, or is it one of those tracks that's kind of is it hit and miss? What's your take on it?
I like the track. I hate how you can get damaged sometimes, and the car feels a bit weird over some of the curbs. But you can not hit the curbs, and then you won't get damage, and then you can usually get around it with the setup. I think Suelio was able to go on some of the curbs a lot better than I was, which is probably part driving and part setup. But I've raced the track in a league before, and it does actually race well. Obviously, I didn't get much of that today, but you can actually have a good race, and obviously it's free, so it's a good track for participation. So I wouldn't complain if it was in the schedule again. I'd run it.
And before we let you go, is there anyone that you want to give a thanks or shout out to?
I'll just say Tucker Minter, because he watched me and annoyed me during most of the race until I muted in the last 5 laps.
Good stuff. Well, congratulations on the second place, Oisin, and will you be on track next week?
Maybe. I'll be slow, but probably. Actually, I will, because I want the participation credit. So yeah, I will, but I'll probably crash.
Good stuff, mate. Well, thanks for joining us in the booth, and we look forward to seeing you on track next week for the final week.
All right, thanks.
As that was second place finisher Oisin Walsh joining us, and I believe up next, Connery, you've got the race winner, Suelio Almeida.
Well, he's currently listed as away on his TeamSpeak, so maybe we won't be getting him. Let's drag him into the booth anyway to see that if he can actually hear us. Suelio, are you there? Are you able to respond? Doesn't seem to be the case, so we will just wait there for just a couple of moments. But just going back to Walsh, though, it's kind of a weird situation for him, I believe, because he's obviously so much quicker than everyone P3 and back, but then again, he's so far off the back of Suelio, so he's in this weird situation where he's faster than everyone else, but he's not faster than just that one guy.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit frustrating. I mean, Oisin, we know how quick he can be on the ovals. Again, he can be quick on the road courses, but it's just like you say, it must be frustrating for him to not really give a more of an answer to Swello, because again today Swello just proved that he's really quick on the road courses with this car, and the Oisin, he's no slouch, but it's just really frustrating that he can't find more pace to try and give more of a challenge.
We can try again. So Elio Almeida has said he's available. There we go. Up into the commentary booth he comes. Your race winner here today at Laguna Seca. This is the number one car, number one driver of Suelio Almeida. He's done it again. Suelio, another exemplary race from you, able to pull away from the rest of the field in quite convincing fashion as well. 7.1 seconds was the gap at the end of that race. It seems like the car was really working well for you.
Hey, yeah, I actually love the track. It's funny because I love and hate the track at the same time. I love to drive here, but I don't like racing here because it's so difficult to overtake, and you definitely need a great qualifying if you want good results here. It just doesn't let you have really good opportunities, so you have to wait for a mistake and everything. I drove like thousands of laps with the Formula 3 here, and I know every bit of secret, everything. Like I'm already I was already so frustrated with the way the curbs make the car bottom out here, and you just don't get a response from the car until you leave the curb and you crash and everything. That I really started building like a method of driving here to find the most reliable lines and to be quick, consistently quick. I think the most difficult thing to do is to be consistent here at Laguna, and I'm glad that I did get this. All the secrets that I learned from the Formula 3 worked here. So I still had some trouble with the car bottoming out. So I had to lift the car a lot more than I would expect to diminish those problems. And then I finally got a setup that I could really push. So yeah, really good result. I was actually quite slow at the beginning of the week, and then I started trying some different approaches for the setup. Especially this track seems to like a very oversteery car. Generally, my setups for Laguna Seca don't work at other tracks. So I'm talking about the Formula 3, but it's just the same thing here. I actually worked. I just like stiffened the rear. I made everything really loose, and because the corners are banked in general, it just works. It works, and it worked. So I almost lost the qualifying. I would be like P3, I think, before, but I really nailed without getting enough track there, and got happy with that result.
Well, there we go. And it's you mentioned that you had a lot of experience in the Formula 3 cars, especially around this circuit. But just in general, how has that prepared you for a season being in this car? Because they're two very similarly sort of the way you drive them looks to be pretty similar. They're both medium speed open wheel cars with a decent amount of downforce, decent amount of power. Are they very similar to get used to, or is there the slight changes or major changes that you need to consider as you jump between the two cars?
I think there are actually major changes in driving, because the Formula 3 doesn't have a lot of engine braking. And because of that, you can be a little bit more aggressive on turn in, and I can make the car looser on entry and really have the car slightly oversteery on entry, which is easier to point the car where I want to. But the Indy Pro, it's the PM18 is a beast on engine braking. So whenever you downshift, like a second earlier that you can spin. So it's really not reliable to make the car lose on entry. So I have to really stiffen put a lot of preload on my rear differential, so I can have this safe environment where I can downshift without thinking I'm going to die. And because of that, I have to actually change my driving a lot. So the way I point the car with the Indy Pro is for a very late apex, but at the same time early throttle, which is slightly counterintuitive, but it's really to have the most rotation when I get back on the throttle. And while the Formula 3.5, I use slightly earlier apexes because I can be looser on entry. So the driving is slightly different, yes. And also the tires actually behave a little bit differently. The Indy Pro, you can slide a little bit more. It's more fun. Because you slide and you still have a lot of grip after you slide. While the Formula 3, just a little bit of slide and you have no grip for the rest of the corner, and you need a straight to cool down the tires. So yeah, I think actually overall it's quite different. But I've been alternating a lot because because of the hours the races go. So today I did actually 4 races: Formula 3 PM18, Formula 3 PM18. So that's how I think I got used to the change now. Whenever I go into the car, I do 3 corners, and I already remember, okay, this one is a late apex, this one is very understeer on entry, and this one is early apex and oversteer on entry. So you kind of have to adapt it quickly, but after some time I got used to it.
Yeah, and of course, coming from Formula 3, I think you were one of the guys that, semi-regularly posted setups on the forums, if I remember correctly. I think you did, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I actually still do.
Oh, you still do? Yeah, I just remember using a lot of your setups when I ran Formula 3, so thank you very much for that, and I guess thanks from very many people for making those publicly available, because it's good to have that sort of technical knowledge coming into these races, and not just using a setup off of insert favorite driving school here. So does that really help you in these races to get more of a personalized car?
Yes. I like to, although I think this is slightly dangerous to think that you should change the setup to your driving all the time, because sometimes you have a problem in your driving, and then you try to adapt your setup to fit that, and you actually make your bad habit worse. So I think it's delicate. You have to adapt. You have to be able to adapt the setup to your driving, but you have to also be able to adapt your driving to any setup. I think if you're able to do these 2 changes in your driving and in the setup, then you're going to be a more complete driver. So yeah. I think that's it. Many people actually try to say, "Oh, though I think your setup doesn't suit my driving," and I don't know if that phrase is that easy. Like I wouldn't like to say that. I really try to, whenever I get a setup from anyone, especially the real life drivers, they really like very, very loose cars. Whenever I get those setups, I really do my best to adapt to that setup, because if they can drive, I should be able to. Like, there's something missing that makes me not able to, and I have to find that.
Well, thank you very much for the in-depth chat. I probably wasn't expecting that coming into this one, but thank you very much for it. We should probably get you on the Race Sport podcast, talking tenths at some point, just to talk in detail about these things. But
cool.
We'll have to see about that. But thank you very much for joining us, and I wish you best of luck in your next races.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that was Suelio Almeida, your race winner here at Laguna Seca for the Indy Pro 2000 Championship on Race Sport TV Primetime and the iRacing Esports Network. And before we go, Ryan, are there any final words? I know you haven't spoken in a while because Suelio likes to take the microphone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite looking forward to the final race of the season, the next Friday. The awesome Nordschleife, so that'll be interesting with this car. And I've got loads of popcorn stacked up for that one.
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting race indeed. These open wheel cars on the Nordschleife, which is going to be... It's going to be a race, isn't it? It's going to be a... I'm not sure what to make of it for the moment. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Exactly 1 week's time, same place next week. It will be... still Ryan commentating, but it will be our series regular of Paul Smith on that broadcast. But with that, that's going to be all that we have time for here today. I've been Connery Maddock. That's been Ryan Walker. We'll see you on the next broadcast. But meanwhile, the racing's not done here on Racesport TV or on iRacing. Remember, we have the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup on tomorrow afternoon European time. So definitely join Paul Smith and Martin Haven for that. Myself and Will Vincent will be the analysts for that particular event. Try and give you a little bit more insight into the top tier of road racing on iRacing. But until then, we'll just have to say goodbye.